Donald Trump has made a disturbing threat on his Truth Social account. We will get to that in a second. I'm sure supporters of him or him possibly would say, no, this is just a prediction or a warning about the damage that an indictment could do, but it's not threatening his supporters doing violence. You judge for yourself, and this is very concerning. Take a look. What kind of person can charge another person? Again, this is on his Truth Social account. In this case, a former president of the United States who got more votes than any sitting president in history, but less votes than Joe Biden, and leading candidate by far for the Republican Party nomination with a crime when it is known by all that no crime has been committed. I don't think that's known. And also known that potential death and destruction in such a false charge could be catastrophic for our country. Let me read that last bit once again. Also known that potential death and destruction in such a false charge could be catastrophic for our country. Why and who would do such a thing? Only a degenerate psychopath that truly hates the United States of America. So, I mean, how much more clearly can you say, my followers will cause death and destruction if you indict me? And as we've mentioned plenty of times now, the party of law and order, as they said so many times, all of a sudden cares very little about possible violations of the law because it is dear Trump. And actually, when they are making all of these accusations of political bias and political persecution, they seem to ignore the fact that for very long, the political bias at play, or the unnecessary and inappropriate influence that was and still is put on our justice system, had to do with individuals like Trump getting out of committing crimes, not being held accountable because they are powerful, because they are influential, wealthy, well-connected. And so seeing Trump possibly, we don't know for sure, but possibly actually get legally held accountable in many cases, of course, the Stormy Daniels case being one of them, one of the more insignificant compared to his attempts to overturn the 2020 election results. And if we see justice in that case, that will be an example of our justice system that is very flawed, that often does treat individuals differently based on who they are. But this would be an example of that not taking place, because someone who's powerful, who's wealthy, who's well connected would actually be getting held accountable when that seems far too rare. And this type of language of threatening death and destruction, you can say it's not a threat. Clearly, that's what that is. That's what that is. Has an impact. Take a look at this from NBC News. The FBI and NYPD are investigating a letter containing a death threat and white powder that was mailed to Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, whose office is investigating former President Donald Trump, law enforcement sources told NBC News. The letter was addressed to Bragg and said, quote, "Alvin, I'm going to kill you," with a bunch of exclamation marks. The source said it contained a small amount of white powder. There were no evacuations or injuries. Officials said, and everything was contained and there was no dangerous substance. So the white powder was just likely an attempt to make those at Alvin Bragg's office, the district attorney's office, terrified, concerned, attached to this threatening letter, but not actually anything that posed a danger. And I want to get to now the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, responding to this threat.
Mr. Jeffries, in one of his late-night Truth Social missives last night, the former president said there would be a potential for, quote, death and destruction should Alvin Bragg choose to charge him in his investigation. What's your response to that?
Well, the twice impeached former president's rhetoric is reckless, reprehensible, and irresponsible. It's dangerous, and if he keeps it up, he's going to get someone killed. We've already seen the consequences of incitement from the former president. He is principally responsible for inciting the violent insurrection that happened on January 6th. But clearly he has not learned his lesson. It's also very unfortunate that the extreme MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives continue to back President Trump and his reckless and his violent and his hateful and his disgusting rhetoric.
Indeed. And the only area in which I disagree with Hakeem Jeffries there is him saying that Trump hasn't learned his lesson. He learned his lesson. He realized that his followers would do some terrible things if he got them motivated in a particular way based on particular lies, and they would follow his dog whistles. They would follow his lies into what we saw on January 6th. And he knows that's something that could happen. That's the exact context in which these messages are being sent, with that awareness in his mind. And that is why when you say there's going to be death and destruction if I'm held accountable legally, and the only plausible way there could be death and destruction because of that action has to do with your supporters, who you have huge rhetorical control over, then you are wielding that tool as a threat. And it terrifies me. And hopefully, if Trump is indeed indicted, as we are watching, could happen very soon, we won't see anything other than peaceful actions by his supporters, but it's far too likely that won't be the case, and that is very concerning. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the extra bonus show on Saturdays, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. Link in the description.